Good afternoon. I'm Judy Zhang, Dean of the D. Bradley McWilliams School of Biomedical Informatics at UTHealth Houston. Thank you all for joining us today for the Glaser Society Award ceremony. So let me start with a brief video. A year ago, our dear friend, Brad McWilliams, his extraordinary generosity reshaped the future of our school. His commitment has enabled the creation of endowed professorships, innovation fund, and student scholarships, strengthening our mission to leverage AI and data science to improve lives. 2 days ago, on Wednesday, we celebrated a milestone, the first year anniversary of the naming of our school. Brad is going to join us in the audience, so if someone comes in with a walker, it's him, all right? So, but again, please join me to show our appreciation for his visionary support. Okay, let me use our research funding history to tell you a little bit about history about our school. Our school was founded in 1998. It was a visionary move by our founding dean, Dr. Doris Ross. But it is still 19 years after EPIC was founded by Judy Faulkner. We are late in the game anyway. In the early years, the incubation phase, we focused on building the research and education foundations. The big leap came between 2010 and 2014. During the ONC EHR adoption and meaningful use time, luckily our school received $37 million funding from ONC for the Regional Extension Center, for the SHARP program focusing on cognitive support and workforce training. Since 2015, we have become an early believer and adopter of AI. Our early investment in AI led to a surge in research funding, bringing us to $25 million per year added research expenditure, and positioning our school as a leader in medical AI research. Okay, so I could not resist running a little experiment, comparing our school's research expenditures with the revenue of EPIC systems. And guess what? The R squared is 0.92, almost perfect. So the 8% variance that could not be explained by this are most likely due to some earthquakes and volcanoes. So it seems like we are riding the same success wave as EPIC. Okay, that's good for everybody. And now, but you cannot really rush off to buy the shares of EPIC because it is private. But you can invest in the McWilliams School because we are a public institution, right? So the data are from ChatGPT. So if anything's wrong, so Judy, let me know. Don't blame my friend ChatGPT. It's all my fault. All right, the curve is what created by ChatGPT. Okay, so I hope it's close. All right. All right, so let me give you an example about research productivity at a school.
Good morning. I am Emily Smith, reporting from the Helix Park at the Texas Medical Center. The McGovern Medical School and the McWilliams School of Biomedical Informatics at UTHealth Houston are celebrating their huge success of collaboration in the most recent NIH funding cycle. During a 2-month period, they received 16 awards in medical AI for a total of $31 million. Congratulations to them. I will come back after a short commercial break.
Okay, 31 meetings last year between August and October. We're trying to duplicate it again this year. So far, since August this year up to today, we have received 20 million. A little bit short, but we still have 1 more week to go. Hopefully, we can hit some jackpots to bring that even. But again, 20 million is already very good during a 3-month period, and does not include the other award we received during the year. By the way, the videos and the images are created by AI. Just if you are curious about how I did that. Okay, so now let me give you the small profile of our school and just a quick overview. We are the biggest biomedical and health informatics program in the country, and hopefully across the globe. We are still the only freestanding school. All other programs are departments and even divisions within a department, typically in a medical school. We have almost 800 people, including students, faculty, staff, and everybody else. Again, we have 25 million expenditure per year, this last year's number. We have 3 departments, one dedicated to data science and AI. The second one is clinical health informatics that focuses on EHR, clinical decision support, telemedicine. And the third one is bioinformatics and system medicine that focuses on molecular data and imaging. And also we have 7 research centers, 5 application cores. There's no official ranking of informatics program. We tried, but some programs did not want to do it because they might get embarrassed. But Scholar GPS has compiled all the data they can ever get about publications and citations, and they use the geometric mean of publications, citation, H index to rank programs at individuals. And you can see that in the middle, for the past 5 years numbers, we are ranked number 2. Okay, look for the right side. The top one, number 1 is Mayo Clinic, right? For the non-academic institutions. Guess what? We just recruited the entire department from Mayo to our school. So the number will change over a few years, all right? Okay, so now let's go beyond our school to see why we are doing so much in AI. In 2012, the deep learning model developed by Jeff Hinton's team from University of Toronto, they won the image-led competition, outperforming competing models by a huge margin and getting close to human performance. This chart shows the proportion of websites that have keywords like AI, whatever, in the entire Google universe. And the 2012 is the dawn of the AI revolution. The rest is the history. So the AI healthcare market is going to grow substantially. Some research firms predicted that it's a minimum of 10x over the next 10 years. I mean, some are much higher, but this is, it's big, okay? All right, so let me try this to see if it works.
This slide highlights the 3 key economic revolutions that have shaped human history and population growth. First, the agricultural revolution, around 10,000 BC, introduced farming and animal domestication, which allowed humans to settle in communities and stabilize food supplies. This was the foundation for population growth and more complex societies. Next, the Industrial Revolution, in the 18th century, used machines to replace manual labor, enabling mass production and driving urbanization. This was a physical transformation that increased productivity and accelerated global population growth. Now, we are in the cognitive revolution, driven by AI. This revolution is automating cognitive tasks like decision-making and analysis, transforming industries such as healthcare and finance. AI is changing how we work and will likely lead to the next wave of societal transformation.
So this chart was created by me by hand. So what I did is probably a little bit interesting. I took a photo, a picture, a snapshot on my phone, loaded it to my ChatGPT, asked it to generate a speech for this slide. So every single word you heard is from ChatGPT. I did not change a single word. It understood this chart perfectly well, better than I could. And in addition, the speech was not really me, it's my avatar. I created using the personal voice on my iPhone. So everything is AI here, except the original ideas, right? So that's what AI can do. Okay, so the Industrial Revolution brought machine engines that have diminished the cost of physical labor. If you go from Houston to New York City, if you fly 3 hours, if you drive 3 days, if you bike 3 weeks, if you walk, maybe 3 months. And the cost of walking is almost 40 times of that of flying. So basically, you can see the diminished cost of physical labor. Similarly, the AI revolution is going to diminish the cost of cognitive labor. So here, imagine you have a super smart cognitive assistant with the best education you can ever get, like one high school Kincaid, which had the alumni including George W. Bush, Jeb Bush, Laura Bush, James Baker, and many other important people. Then you get training in mathematics from Princeton, Harvard MBA, MIT engineering PhD, and of course UT Austin Law School, and the best medical dental education here in UTHealth. Okay, and it has 5,000 years of knowledge, skills, and experience in most cognitive tasks. Read every single book in the Library of Congress and every single web page that is publicly available, and is willing to work for you for free, almost, or you can pay $20 to get more advanced version. So that's the kind of cognitive thing that we have today already. As you can see, I already use this every day in my daily activity. So it's there for real. It's going to change everything, including medicine. All right. So the impact of AI on society is truly historical and transformational. Even the Nobel Prize Committee agreed. So they awarded the physics prize to 2 AI researchers, Hopfield and Hinton. The Hopfield network and the Boltzmann machines that is cited were actually not a real reason for their award, because I had personal experience, because in the 80s, I was in the same institute at UC San Diego, where Jeff Hinton was a postdoc, I was a PhD student. I was the first TA for the machine learning course, and in the class, I taught students how to solve the Hopfield network problem by hand, and how to use a programming language called Lisp to program the algorithm backpropagation from scratch. So I knew everything about that. It had nothing to do with the 2 things mentioned. It's more about the backpropagation and deep learning. So backpropagation foundation of deep learning, which revolutionized AI. A day later, the chemistry award was given to 3 AI researchers. 2 of them are at Google, and 1 at the University of Washington. So they basically solved the protein folding problem from 1-dimensional structure to sequence of 3-dimensional structures. In the old day, during my time, it would take 1 whole PhD dissertation to determine the structure of 1 protein. And if you're lucky, you can grow the crystal, all right? So they solved 100 million protein structure problem at once. That's their achievement, so this problem is basically solved. That's why they won a prize. So a little bit of bragging here. So this is the slide I used for more than 10 presentations already over the past 13 months. As basically I predicted that this work would win them the Nobel Prize someday. But I did not expect that they would come so fast. Okay, really, really fast. So, however, the excitement now is that there will be many, many Nobel-worthy discoveries, and they are likely to be made by high school kids with the help of super smart and capable AI. So AI is fundamentally changing everything, not just the healthcare, but basic sciences. So we're going to see what's going to happen. All right, so today is basically the James Watt moment in the intelligence age. I think Jeffrey Hinton is the James Watt of the cognitive revolution. He made everything real. Okay, so a few more things, then we can get our real proceedings here. And if you have kids in high school, and I don't know what you should tell them. The one on the left side is the performance by AI on all AP SAT test. And it's much better than average. And you achieve like 94% or whatever accuracy. Even for the hardest one, English language and English literature, it's getting better. It's hard. I mean, if you have ever taken the test, it's very hard. Okay, it's not like mathematics, which is easier. The one in the middle shows that this most recent version from ChatGPT already outperformed human for PhD level problems in chemistry, biology, and physics. Okay, they compare with real humans who are trained with PhDs. And the one on the right side is more important for programmers. The previous model 4.0, ChatGPT 4.0, only had an 11 points score, but the most recent one got almost 90. That's a dramatic increase of performance of coding. So today the best, most popular programming language is English. It's not Python, it's not C. So we're getting there. And if you're curious about IQ, so I have one here, which is not really confirmed, but it shows that all other models previously had IQ score less than 100, which is average. But this most recent one version got a score of 120, which is pretty smart, right? Okay, then for medical education, of course, it only requires 60% correct to pass the medical license exam, step 1. Machine got 90% correct. For dental exams, similarly, so machines can do that. And for primary care diagnosis, machines outperformed real human physicians. Okay, so now back to our UT Health. We are, as you can tell now, by now, if you have not been convinced, we can talk more. So we are a leader in medical AI. And UT Health Houston is the first academic institution who signed an institution-wide contract with OpenAI for HIPAA-compliant ChatGPT solutions. So we're using that every day, and students, faculty, researchers can use this to all kinds of things. They're HIPAA-compliant. You can take up patients and everything. Okay, one last slide. People always ask whether AI will ever replace human. So my answer is that AI will not replace clinicians. But clinicians who use AI will replace clinicians who do not. The reason is that the biological brain has not really changed much over the past few thousand years, but data and technology has grown exponentially. The distributed intelligence composed of humans and AI will drive the future of medicine and our society. Okay, so now, hope you're good with my time. So now is the time to start our Glaser Society proceeding to honor today's honoree who helped make all of this happen. The Glaser Society honors the legacy of Dr. John P. Glaser, a visionary in health informatics. For over 30 years, his work has transformed patient care by uniting leaders across health IT, government, academia, and industry. His lifelong mission, using information to improve health and healthcare worldwide. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Glaser on the stage to start your section.
This John Glaser Healthcare Informatics Society, or Health Informatics Society, was created to recognize innovators and leaders in the field of health informatics or digital health. And I'm obviously delighted to be in a position to honor one of the legends and the most significant contributors to our field. Now, by way of background, all of the recipients, who are all listed here, have made major contributions to using the technology to improve the health and the healthcare of people across the world, et cetera. They've done so in different ways. So, for example, Marion Ball, where are you, Marion Ball? Right there, has educated tens of thousands of healthcare professionals and made remarkable progress and remarkable contributions to the advancement of the field of nursing informatics. So, Marion, it's a pleasure to have you along with the lines here. Ivo Nelson, who's in front here, looks like Grizzly Adams. You know, I don't remember the old show, Grizzly Adams. Well, no, he's a nice enough guy. He won't growl or claw you. But he's a legendary entrepreneur who has created one of the best and most significant healthcare services companies, but also been an advisor to a large number of startups along the way. So provided the entrepreneurial spirit and wisdom that was really quite important to a number of companies. Graham Grieve, who's not here, was the person who started the FIRE standards. For those of you in the biz know what that is. Those of you who not, don't worry about it. But it's a remarkably important, which will help us advance the innovation in the field, but also the ability to interoperate between systems. David Bates' work, who I worked with a lot when I was at Partners, is probably the most significant academic contributor to understanding how the systems actually make care better. What is it that they do? Do errors go up? Do errors go down? Are handoffs better, et cetera? So David provided real data about real impact and shaped a lot of us and a lot of how we've invested money. Steve Lieber was the former CEO of HIMSS, and Steve was responsible for taking HIMSS, and I was board chair of HIMSS a long, long time ago, from a 2,400 conference attendees to 42,000 conference attendees, so creating the largest and most impactful healthcare professional organization on the planet. Clem McDonald, who was the Chief Health Data Standards Office for the National Institute of Health, was not only a major proponent in advancing standards, but he also ran the Reagan Street Institute, where a lot of very pioneering work in early digital health was developed here, et cetera. And as you might expect, our honoree for this year, Judy Faulkner, stands tall, quite tall, amongst this group of illustrious people. Her work, in fact, her team, a number of members of her team, and obviously a whole bunch of your team who's not here today, but nonetheless, has laid the digital foundation for the delivery of care for tens of millions of providers for hundreds of millions of patients. And I think her work and that of the team has developed this sort of broad and very comprehensive set of software. I won't be able to go through all of it, Judy, but the electronic health record, Cosmos, which does some incredibly sophisticated analytics, personal health record, and MyChart, and a number of you are familiar with the technology, et cetera. What she and her team have done is created the most successful and the most impactful healthcare software company in the history of our field. There is no peer and there's no parallel there. So, it's a remarkable thing to do and remarkably difficult to do, frankly. It is, I'm sure she may or may not tell you that. So I think it is her contributions extend well beyond the creation of this organization, which a number of you use today, and I suspect I can see heads nodding across the board here. But she's also been a major contributor to professional associations, having worked with her at Chime and at HIMSS, and also with her when she's a member of the policy committee at ONC, which helped establish the Meaningful Use program. Took the legislation down to the specifics of the regulation that went on there. She also serves on the University of Wisconsin Madison Computer Sciences Board of Visitors. She's a member of the National Academy of Medicine's Leadership Roundtable and is a member of the Aspen Health Strategy Group, among other organizations. In keeping with her spirit and her altruistic view of the world, she and her husband Gordon established the Roots and Wings Foundation, which supports programs that advance the health and well-being of children. So, Judy, you a giant in our field, and whose impact on our lives and the lives of those who deliver care and the lives of those who receive care will last for a very, very long time. So it is a real pleasure and a real treat. I'm really quite touched and delighted we can do this, Judy, and delighted that you agreed to do this, that we are in a position to honor you and to salute all the work that you've done. So I'd like you to come up here. We're going to give you a fancy piece of metal with something you can hang around your neck, and after that we'll tell you what we're going to have next. So here we go. So I have this formal thing because there's an actual formal set of things I have to say here for this to be official, okay? You want it to be official, right? Yeah, I do too, okay. Judy Faulkner, as founding member of the Glaser Society, I induct you into that society and hereby accord you the 2024 John P. Glaser Health Informatics Award. So there you go. Oh, very nice. So, I don't know if I'll tell you what's going to happen next. I don't know whether you want to say anything or not, but it's okay if you don't, because we're going to make you say. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
I think the only thing I want to say is just to congratulate you and other wise ones who have been part of the growth of this area for the last decades.
Long time.
You, Ivo, will you stand?
Yeah.
Scott Joffrey.
Yeah. She's right behind Scott.
Yeah, I guess that's each. John, Ivo, Marion, Scott.
Good.
Okay, good group.
Yeah. Thank you.
So one other thing I want to say is health IT. I have a T-shirt that says this. Health IT is more complex than rocket science. That's what these folks all do.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. We have 3 rocket scientists at Epic. And they all agree that it's hard.
Well, I suspect you've all seen the Peter Drucker comment that hospitals are the most complex organizational form ever created. And sometimes I used to wonder, having worked in them for decades, how do they actually work? It's just amazing to me they actually work at times. They're so darn complicated. So anyway, thank you, Judy. So what we're going to do now, and Ivo and Judy will stay here, is we're going to have a form of a roundtable conversation. So we're going to take turns asking questions. I'll ask one, and then Ivo, you're going to be next, and then Judy of each other. We're going to have a dialogue along those lines. We'll do that for, 30 minutes or so. And then we're going to open it up to you. And so we're going to talk about issues in the field, AI, interoperability, where's it all going, and things like that. So I will start and direct the first question. Let me get my fancy list of questions here. Great. All right, you ready?
I don't know.
You'll be brilliant. You'll be brilliant. All right. Well, I mean, obviously it's been 79. It was quite a while ago that you founded Epic. Could you give us just an overview of the company's progress and impact, and where would you like to see it go in the years ahead? What's sort of your vision view of where it should be 5-10 years out?
Well, certainly it has been growing by leaps and bounds over the last 10 years.
I saw the graph.
Yeah. And what I want most is for folks to always be able to say what is the biggest focus and the biggest importance of what the company is doing, and that is that we have happy health system customers. And that's our number one thing. It's interesting because sometimes I ask our staff, here's the things to think about, and put a percent by each one. Why do you come to work? 1, for the paycheck. 2, for something interesting to do. 3, for your coworkers. You don't want to be alone. 4, for the competition. You like that. 5, for the customers. You feel the commitment to the customers. And 6, for the mission of healthcare. Why do you come to work? And I ask them to put a percent by each one. And then I ask them to pick the one that, now these are, folks who have been there for 2 or 3 months. So I asked them to circle the biggest number. Guess which one they typically circle the most? The one, I say to them in the end, pick the one that is the biggest. What would you think they circle the most? I'll tell you, paycheck. Because they've only been there 2 or 3 months. I don't know why they're there. And yet the goal, of course, is, the goal is to try to have them become part of the Epic culture. And I say their job next is to figure out, what did I circle? With no hesitation at all. And I circled the customer. Most people think I circled the mission, but I circled the customer. Our job is to take care of you folks, and your job is to take care of patients. And that's how we see it. And that's why I say that in the years in the future, I hope that they can still say, we take care of customers.
Yeah, it becomes your North Star.
Yes.
That's what. So let me ask you the second question, and then Ivo, I'll turn it over to you for this. And again, Ivo and Judy, you can both respond to this. Can you sense of kind of, let you mention, Judy, we've been in this journey, all of us, 3 of us anyway, for multiple decades. And so I've seen progress from 1990 to where we are today and the use of the technology to improve care. But where would you sort of assess of where we are in our collective efforts, both in this country but broadly across the board, in applying this technology to make care more efficient, more effective, more accessible, more equitable, and all that stuff? And where have we been really successful, but where have we been sort of not as much progress as we ought to have done? So how would you give what kind of report card, both a number grade perhaps, but also a qualitative assessment? What would you say, Judy?
Okay. I think where we are, we've gone very far in the last 20 years. So most places here do have electronic health records, and many are able to interoperate. So when you as a patient go from one health system to another, very often your record will follow you. Not always, but very often. Where we are struggling is rural. They don't have the same level of care that the cities have. We're struggling with primary care. Doctors in primary care need to be paid more. Medicare and Medicaid. They don't pay enough to cover expenses for many. What else? Well, I think that's most.
Yeah, fair enough.
And compared to overseas, I think we're better off than many countries because many of the other countries, we're in 16 countries now, many of them are very separate, the GPs from the health systems, so they don't share back and forth like, well, the GPs from the hospitals, whereas we have health systems that share both the ambulatory care and the inpatient, and many overseas don't do that, so they're missing something important.
Ivo, what would you say?
Like, make sure I understand the question.
You know, kind of where are we in our collective efforts to apply the technology? I mean,
So, honestly, I'm not saying this because Judy's up here on stage. I think we are only where we are because of Epic, frankly, and the government helping to jumpstart and really help. I don't know, I didn't really correlate it back to the graph up there, but meaningful use. And the government injecting some money into it to incent the hospitals and the EMRs really kind of help launch automation of the medical record and processes that they're associated with. I really give it all, I give Epic most of the credit, okay? And I say this, you know, John, we've been in the industry for a long time. It's slow. I mean, this is such a slow industry. I mean, before this panel, I thought I'd beef myself up and get some input from some colleagues that I have out in the industry and made about 10 phone calls, and nothing really had changed in the last few years, except that we have Epic, okay? So I give Judy and her company a huge amount of credit for that. But can I make one more comment?
Of course you can.
If you didn't, I don't think you did an adequate job of embarrassing Judy.
Okay.
Everybody here needs to understand the impact that she's had, not just on this industry, but on the world, okay? Truly, her legacy is going to go down not just as one of the great healthcare leaders, but one of the greatest business leaders that's ever walked the earth. I mean, on par with Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Rockefeller, Esther Lauder. I went through and kind of did a little independent research on business leaders and these are, you know, founders of companies that really transformed entire industries. And within this healthcare industry that we're in, there is nobody who has made that mark except for Judy and what she's done with Epic. And I think in the course of time, because we haven't finished playing this out yet, okay? Jaji's chart on AI, he wouldn't be showing that chart if it wasn't for Epic. He wouldn't, you know? We wouldn't have consistency of even the cleanliness of data out there so that you could do the analysis that is required for AI, for analytics, or any of that stuff. So just trying to put in, Judy, can I go on, or have you had enough?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, don't leave, please. Don't stay on the stage.
Yeah, I hold her up there just with the greats in the entire world as a business leader, okay?
Well, I'll give my own response to the question that I asked. I think in many ways it's extraordinary. First of all, digital transformation of any industry takes decades, period. I don't care whether you're banking, financial services, whatever it is, it just takes long periods of time because you have to shape business models, you shape people, you shape regulations. It just very rarely is it in a short period of time. So there you go. You got a lot of company taking a long. Doesn't mean we dilly-dally, but on the other hand, let's be real about it. I do think when you look over the last 20 years, you say, wow, we went from essentially single-digit EHR use to 90%, in hospitals and physician practices. The interoperability, which was non-existent, has made major progress in the last year. I mean, back 20 years ago, the notion of a personal health record, it just wasn't there, let alone wiring people up to measure blood sugars or cardiac functions, et cetera. So you can look across the board and say, wow, pretty darn cool. Lots of advancement in terms of technology capabilities and sort of adoption. And you could also say, we got a lot more to do, because I think despite all the cool stuff that Jaji sold, it's not yet in the fabric in terms of what it really does. It's still very early. That's okay. That's kind of where the internet was, in its first year or two. So we have a lot to learn there. And you can see like digital therapies, people dealing with their anxiety and depression. You could see sort of the ability to like the protein folding, be able to determine the structure of a complex protein structure. So we got a lot of ground to cover. I do think in some ways the major impact is sort of as a result of the technology. So I sometimes used to think, well, what does the computers really do? They enable complexity. And so you wouldn't have a conversation about value-based care unless there was that digital infrastructure. You just wouldn't, because you couldn't pull it off. So why bother? Now, it doesn't mean we've pulled it off, but you still would have that conversation because you could say, I can see how the data is sharing, I can see the analytics, I can see a bunch of stuff. So it enables you to think about things that previously were not thinkable about, if that's a real phrase that goes on here. The other thing is, I remember when I got started, you go into a boardroom and talk to the CEO. They had no clue what you were talking about. I mean, this computer stuff was just mysterious and all that other stuff. No, that's not true. They grew up with it. So you actually have a savviness on the part of the leadership level, administrative and clinical, that says, I grew up with this stuff. I know how it works. I know it can be useful. I'm not naive about the complexity of the thing. So you have a sophisticated set of leadership, both political and clinical and managerial we didn't have before, which means they'll be smarter. They've got scar tissue from implementations, for example. They know what that's like. So anyway, we'll have an audience that is more talented, sophisticated, and thoughtful about how to apply that stuff, which means we'll be better at it. We'll just be more effective. They'll be more demanding. That's okay as we go through that. So Evelyn, I'm going to turn to you. You can pick any one of these fine questions or make one up.
You don't want me to make one up.
Well, I made sure I do, but we can cut you off if you get...
Well, I'm going to ask Judy a question. I was fortunate in my career to have great mentors. Ross Perot was my first mentor. He taught me good fundamental business and also how to treat people with respect. Rod Canyon, who founded Compact Computers, he's local, taught me the power of teamwork and consensus and decision-making. And they operated at the absolute highest level of ethics. So I learned how to run companies the right way and how to treat people with respect. Judy, who were your mentors and what did you learn from them?
I guess the first one had to be my mother, who graduated high school at age 15 with straight A's, went straight into the workforce, taught herself so much, and was, a very ethical person. She ran the South Jersey Peace Center during the Vietnam War, which was really breaking with tradition of the way everyone else was going then. When she was in her 80s, she got arrested and put in jail for protesting atomic bombs. She was very proud of that. And there's a photo of the policeman arresting her, and both of them are smiling together. It's very cute. So she had a lot of courage, and I think that was something she taught. I think now one of the people I admire a lot is Warren Buffett, because he's 94 years old, still working hard, and really cares about doing the right thing and helping other people. We're trying to keep Epic never to go public, never to be acquired. Because when you ask, what's my vision for Epic in the future, we've put that into process because my voting shares go into something called the Purpose Trust. And the Purpose Trust requires the 9 people who can vote my shares, my 4 family members and 5 designated Epic staff, all with succession plans, can never vote to go public, can never vote to be acquired. The CEO of Epic always has to be a software developer and a long-time employee. And then it goes on and on with different rules. The very last rule, a bunch of rules in the end, are just things that are suggested but not required. And the very last one is that the hold music should always be classical. We have 3 CEOs from our CEO Council, our customers, who are the trust protectors, and their job is to sue anybody who doesn't vote according to the rules. The other thing about the rules is besides the list of what you can and can't vote on, you're supposed to vote first for what's in the best interests of our health systems and the patients. Second, for what's in the best interest of Epic. Third, for what's in the best interests of the employees at Epic. And last, for the best interests of the shareholders. So we flipped it from what would be normal to having the health systems and their patients be first.
Cool. So I just want to add a quick thing, and just a suggestion, and perhaps some homework for you all. Probably outside my father and mother, the person, Dick Nesson, who was the CEO of the Brigham and Women's Hospital, was my first boss when I got a real job of running an IT department, et cetera. He was extraordinarily formative to me. And I remember writing, when he retired, I wrote a letter to him, and I said, this is what you meant to me. You taught me about family. You taught me about taking risk. You taught me about what it means to be tough. You taught me about patient care. This is what you meant to me. And I concluded with this thing that says, you made sure to the degree that I was capable, much of what you are, I have become. And I left that letter in an envelope on his desk at Partners HQ. And he came in the next morning, closed the door, and said, you made my wife cry, which basically said I made him cry. He was of the generation where, guys don't cry. And so what was striking to me is a year later, he died of a heart attack. And so the message to you is if there's someone like that in your life, tell them before, because you want to tell them before they pass, okay? And, really what they mean to you, because it's remarkably important to them and, frankly, remarkably important to you. So I don't want you to go leave right now to go do that, but, sometime this evening, why don't you go do that? So, Judy, is there a question for us collectively, the two of us or yourself, too? What would you say?
What do you want?
Here, I've got one if you can't think of one.
Say that again?
I've got one for you.
Okay, for me.
For you.
Okay.
So Judy has many, many, many talents. However, one of those is naming things. She names everything. And if you go up to Wisconsin and visit the facility, every product's got a cute name. Every room's got a name. The parking garages have names, okay? So the question is, do you do this? Or do you have a process? And can you give some examples? Because it's quite entertaining, actually.
Sometimes I name them just on my own. And sometimes our staff recommend names, especially if it's a product that they've worked on. Then they will give me a whole bunch of names. One of the rules is they can never give me the reason why they like that name. Because when other people see that name, they're not going to see the reasons. So it has to be something that I can understand without someone telling me, well, it's a Greek goddess who does this and that. Some of my favorite names. I like Wisdom for the dental. I like Cheers for campaigns. Help me, folks. Epic folks. What? Happy Together. Yeah, Happy Together is when you can bring all the systems together. Named after when my daughter got married, they played that Turtles song, Happy Together. And so I came back and named the product Happy Together. I don't know. That's some of it. I wanted to name Cardiology Thumper. But someone from Cleveland Clinic said no. It's a much better name than Thumper. So I was at Hackensack, and a pediatric cardiologist came into the room with a great big red plastic nose. And he said, do you want my card? And I said, okay, and he handed me a joker. So I decided to ask him if he liked Thumper for cardiology. And that man with the red nose looked at me and said, it's not dignified.
Okay, well, from a man who knows.
And that killed Thumper.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of fun names.
I have a question for you too, John, if you're ready.
Yes.
Okay, so, we've got a lot of theories out there. What Copernicus said, that Earth goes around the sun. Newton taught us about gravity. Einstein taught us about relativity. Well, John Glaser, he actually has a theory that very few people have been introduced to. It's called the boson theory. Right?
Yes.
Can you explain to these people what that is? Because I think you need to promote this theory so you can get into the same class as
I will
other
do
great
that, but we are going to go back to your
theorists.
question. Okay. So just to give you the brief thing, and I've taught this to a lot of CIOs and CIO boot camps, so I just want to make sure that the healthcare IT executive leadership has a firm understanding of this theory because it's really quite important in a lot of ways. One is when I first got out of graduate school, I went to work at Arthur D. Little as a consultant. And one of the things I noticed is that when our consultants spent time with stupid people, our consultants turned stupid, okay? And unfortunately, it was not like a hangover where you could recover 24 hours. It was permanent damage going on here, okay? And he said, this is a real problem because a consulting firm, that's your asset. It's your people, it's your smart people, and you just can't have a bunch of dumb people running around. It's just not helpful. So the question is, why? What's going on here? Well, it turns out that stupid people emit a lightweight particle called a boson. It travels in irregular motions, and it penetrates the skull of smart people and turns them stupid. So you've wondered where the word bozo came from. It's from the boson, okay? Because bozos emit bosons, et cetera. So we said, well, look, now we understand the theory. But we've got to, and we're a consulting firm, so we're going to have stupid clients, okay? And even smart people can be stupid from time to time. So how are we going to protect them? So we have developed the boson deflector, okay? Which in its initial form, an Arthur D. Little high-tech consulting firm, et cetera, looked like tinfoil wrapped around your head. And so a consultant would go into a meeting with a stupid client with tinfoil wrapped around their head, and a client go, what's going on here? He says, you're an idiot. That's what. I'm just protecting myself going on here. So we've since then have this, those of you with a little earpiece that looks like an eye, that's actually a deflector. It's a shield that goes around here, et cetera. We also have the boson detector, which used to look like a Geiger counter. So you could put the paddle up to the person's forehead and get a reading. And the person would say, what are you doing? I'm saying, I'm trying to figure out how stupid you are, which is kind of rough in a lot of ways here. So now I have on my iPhone, and I think you do, well, I can sweep a room. This room has been swept, okay, because I can detect a boson or bosons at a 400-yard feet. So we developed the boson detector and the boson deflector as part of this thing here. So periodically, and now I'm getting on in years, my sister, God, I'm forgetting stuff. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. And I say, what's that all about? Long-term exposure to bosons, man. Because there I am in the supermarket, and I forget to do deflector up, and I'm standing next to a moron. I just don't know what's going on here. So anyway, that was the thing. And so all CIOs, because those of you who are senior executive types, you're going to be in meetings. You say, holy smokes, this is dangerous, et cetera.
And now you know why he has an award named after him.
That's right. So, let me go back to you, Judy. You were going to ask a question?
I was just going to ask you the same question that you asked me. Where would you like to see things in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is I think the areas that will be really interesting will be what Jaji hinted at, is how we will apply this sort of remarkable technology or category of technology, and it'll just be really cool. I think every 10 years there's a technology that changes the world in very fundamental ways. The web did that. The mobile device did that. The mini computer did that. Whatever. So the world will be very different, but it'll take time. So I don't really know, Judy. I just hope it's thoughtful and that we'll see this diversity of things here. The second thing that I think is really key is that we're shifting sort of where is care delivered. So we're shifting progressively away from a concrete structure to your home. You're all over the place here because we can wire you up and treat you in a lot of ways. And so care is this thing that goes everywhere, not just when you visit a certain locale. The third is I hope we continue to make this lurching, uneven progress to say we're going to reward you for delivering quality of care and not for seeing a lot of people or doing a lot of tests. Because I think a lot of the reasons we have issues is because the incentive system's all messed up. Now, I appreciate the complexity. I got it. That being said, we could be a little further along than we are now in our ability to do that kind of stuff. So it's a combination of landscape. It's a combination of, I think there's a couple of areas which will be remarkable. I don't really know what it ought to look like other than to say, there's going to be a couple of high yield areas and exciting areas in which we'll yield, and you all will be at the forefront of that. Ivo and I will kibitz on the topic, but nonetheless, that's where it will be.
Okay, so we're up here dreaming, right? Honestly, if the question is 5, 10 years, I would really like to see healthcare be transformed into something that makes more sense. I mean, we're 18% of the gross national product. Is that number still good?
Close to 20.
Okay. We provide better care than most of the world. I admit to that, okay? But I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of countries and help develop even some strategies for their health care. And, you know, some of them, they do a pretty good job, even though you get a little bit less at a fraction of the cost. Yeah. I just feel like at some point we're going to have to have a paradigm shift at the level of what Uber did to the taxi service, at the level of what Steve Jobs did with the music streaming service. I mean, there's been dramatic paradigm shifts in industries before, and healthcare just doesn't ever seem to be able to make that breakthrough. I know largely because of the way that the country, politics, and all that makes it extremely hard to get things done. But the question is, we're dreaming here, okay? In my lifetime, I'd love to see dramatic paradigm shifting change.
Yeah.
And by the way, it would never have been possible without having. I know Judy doesn't like the word platform. I heard that. Somebody told me that. But what's the word?
System.
Foundation. A system that integrates things in a way that allows that to happen. You know.
Yeah, I'm curious, and then we'll turn back over to you guys for additional questions. I mean, when I was in graduate school as a sociologist, because there in R squared of 0.3 got you a dissertation. You didn't have to do this 0.9 nonsense, which was just too high of a bar. But I remember there were two industries, which were both social economic industries, which there's an economic part, I got it, but there's also a phenomenally large and impactful social mission that goes on there, healthcare and education. And in both cases, they are really difficult to change quickly. Because there's always a social tension above and beyond the economic tension of complexity is, do we deny care to people, which is fundamentally where you'd be in a purely economic thing. You would deny care. So wait a minute, that's not where we're willing to go, as a society. So anyway, I don't know. I'm just an old jaded fart, but I just think, rapid change may not be in the cards just because of the complexity and the social nature of it, et cetera. So let me ask you about you two, but, Jaji talked a lot about, and then we'll open it up to questions from you all, AI. What's your sense of how big of a deal that will be? And will it be a big deal in some areas but not others? What's your sort of read on where this might take us or where we want it to take us?
Well, first of all, AI has been around for decades and decades. Yeah. So you're in a hotel, you're on the 6th floor, you're waiting for an elevator. There's 4 different elevators. One comes to you. 4 don't come to you. 1 comes to you. Because algorithmic AI was figuring out which one should go there and which ones should not. And we've been living with that type of assistance for decades. So there's algorithmic AI, and then there's the AI that does things such as deterioration and sepsis and readmit to the facility and stuff like that. That's another kind of AI. And then the last kind of AI right now is algorithmic AI. Cognitive AI, generative AI. And I think that it's fascinating what it can do. It worries me that it isn't creative. It is looking at what has been done and bringing that to the forefront. But it doesn't figure out, as human beings do, what's never been done and say, let's try that. So I do think that's a limitation. I think there's going to be a ton of stuff being done with it. And we are working on about 100 different projects right now. How many of you use MyChart? Raise your hand if you do.
Oh, good.
Okay, so MyChart has AI now that answers your messages to the doctor. The doctor can change the response, can ignore the response, can just send it on. We have to do it through the doctor because the FDA will say we're a medical device otherwise. And so that takes the doctor down to about 30 seconds for a message, much better than the several minutes it takes otherwise. So it saves a bit of time every day. The other thing AI is doing now is it is doing the charting so the doctor can just talk to you, doesn't have to be on the computer. The AI listens, so the doctor has to explain everything to you so the AI hears it. Because the doctor can't just put it on the computer, because the AI doesn't see that anymore. So the doctor speaks to you, the AI hears it, writes it up, goes through it again, turns it into a charting note, and it gets put away, we have to then figure out what's the order and place the order, what's the diagnosis, and turn on the appropriate diagnosis. So I do think that AI is going to help hugely. The feedback from the MyChart responses have been that patients, for the most part, like the AI responses, we call it ART, Augmented Response Technology, that the AI, they prefer it to the doctor because the AI is more empathetic. The doctor is busy. You might write, I'm going to go see my new granddaughter. I'll be gone for a couple weeks. Here's what I need. The doctor is likely to say, I ordered it for you, because the doctor's busy. The AI is going to say, I ordered it for you and have a great time with your new granddaughter. So the non-human is more human. And then the charting has been getting an enormous reception. Almost everyone. By the way, the response to MyChart is in general release now, so you can take one of the new releases and turn it on, those of you who are in control of that stuff. The charting has been getting exceptional response. The doctors are saying things like, it will say, it is saving my marriage, it is saving my job, I'm not going to quit, and don't ever get rid of it. So I do think that that's going to be a very significant change so that the patient feels the doctor is talking to him or her, and the doctor feels like they are now not as burdened. The question has been, if it saves the doctor an hour a day, say, or 1.5 hours a day, what do you do with that time? Do you fill it up with more patients to try to solve the excess problem? Or do you give the doctor more time to try to solve the doctor burden problem? So I don't know the answer. We're seeing different groups do different things.
Ivo, how would you answer that question?
You know, it would be my hope that AI may be the tipping point to move us more into a wellness model. It has, and it's AI combined with the supercomputing required for AI is just huge. And, you know, so I had a company got acquired by IBM a while back, and I asked the engineers, what is it that's so difficult about? Because these guys are working across all the industries. Okay, what is it about healthcare that's so hard? And they said, well, it's not the size of the data sets. We've got bigger data sets, but it's kind of what Judy mentioned when we were standing up there. It's the complexity of the relationships of the data. And AI has got, you know, some skill there, but it requires a huge amount of computing power. It's my hope that being able to correlate the data, the information with your life, how you live your life, you know, what it knows about you. And I think what scares people is that AI is going to know you better than you know yourself sometimes, okay, because of the way you interact with social media, the information that it's gathering on you, that it can actually predict, you know, health issues that is otherwise, you know, we just don't do now. You know, we still treat illnesses, and that's healthcare. So, you know, if we can make that shift, that would be huge.
Yeah, 3 comments, and then we'll open it up to see what questions you all have. I think, you know, one is these kinds of phenomenal changes in our world take long periods of time, as mentioned before. So if you think about when was Google founded, the answer is 1998. So it's, you know, it's 26 years old. And we're still learning about how to use the internet or how it's to be used. I mean, to look at the political process, and I'm not going to ask who you're voting for. That would turn this into a catfight. But the point is that there's a political set of discourse, both good and not so good, that is still new. It certainly wasn't the case 5 years ago. So the point is that the long tails, long evolutions of these things, in some ways, they never stop. That's point number one. Point number two, at times we talk about as if there's a technology determinism, that the technology will do this. That's nonsense. We do it using the technology. So we collectively as societies and organizations decide how to apply it. Now, we got to be careful because there could be bad actors, and we got to be careful because there could be dumbness, you know, that goes on. So certain guardrails get put up, et cetera. But nonetheless, you know, getting out of the technology determinism thing. The third, and this is there was a study done, it was in The Economist a couple of months ago, and it looked at a range of industries, and the ones I focused on were banking and insurance. and said, who are the dominant players in those industries globally today? And the question is, who are the dominant players 20 years ago? It's pretty much the same names. It's Bank of America, it's Wells Fargo, it's Royal Bank of Canada, all those kind of things. You say, wait a minute, that's been extraordinary digital change. And if you were to think any industries would be turned sideways, it'd be banking or insurance. But they may have been turned sideways, but it's still the major players. So what happens? Those who are dominant, if they're smart, leverage the strengths that they have, the brand that they have, the knowledge of the industry they have. They leverage their strengths, but they're not asleep. They wake up and say, I have to absorb this technology, make these changes, et cetera. And if I adapt, I can preserve, my sort of dominance. Now, I know in both healthcare, dominance is not number one on the strategic intentions, and nonetheless. But point being said, is this long evolution that we can control, it will be you all who determine where it goes and how it goes. And you will do that because you say, I got care to deliver. I've got a mission to fulfill, et cetera. And I will figure out how best to apply it. So the point is there's nothing like, it's not inherent that you get steamrolled. Newspapers did because they were largely asleep on these kinds of things here. So with that, and go out and conquer the world. Let's see if you all have questions for our esteemed guests, but two of our acolytes here too. Let's see what you'd like to do. And don't be shy.
Hi. On? Yeah. Okay. I would love to hear from each of the three of you if there was, say, a pivotal moment in your leadership because there's so many years across your career. And this morning, Judy was explaining to the doctoral students that she, wrote a program in her basement. You came up with a way to write the program that no one thought could be written. But now you're a CEO of this billion-dollar global company. How do you go from being a software developer to such a successful CEO and business person as you were describing? That just fascinates me. And how does a person make that kind of person, as a person grow that way and really become, the success that, when you think about the success you've had and the honors and the accolades, where was the pivotal moment that you became that leader?
Where what?
Where was the pivotal moment? What was what was it that helped you to become that leader?
I don't think there was one pivotal moment. Recently, we had a meeting where one of the CEOs from one of the well-known big tech companies was at our place. And he made the comment that if he assigns 10 projects, he expects one to succeed. And I looked at him in horror and said, if I assign 10 projects, I expect 10 to succeed. And some of our software developers came up to me afterwards and said, thank you for trusting us. And I do think that's a very important piece of it all. First, you have to hire well. And we do that by test. We don't interview. Interview is a coin flip, in my opinion. You don't necessarily hire who you think you hire when you interviewed. But testing is pretty consistent with the results. That usually works out very well. So we hire very, very well. We don't even bother interviewing, give them the offer once they've passed the test, which they can do remotely. And then we assume, and it works out, that they will own the projects. It is their project. And that's what makes the 10 out of 10 work. They will do whatever they can to make sure that their project is going to be successful. So, no pivotal moment, but the process.
Yeah. What would you say?
I think there's been a lot, not one. But so as an example, at one point I made an acquisition, and the CFO and I just made the decision, and we worked the process, and I didn't really include my management team in the process, and it turned into the biggest disaster. We weren't culturally aligned with them. The business models were different. It literally set us back a year. It's the first year that we actually barely made a profit, and it was painful. And it was not just painful for me, but it was painful for everybody around me. And I realized I made a mistake, so I unwound that acquisition, put them back out, helped them get back into business. pull my management team together and just apologize to them because I showed a lack of respect. You know, teamwork is so powerful in an organization. And when you show a lack of respect and you break those bonds of a commitment that you made to your people to teamwork, it's a extremely painful experience. And so, you know, I personally learned something from that, okay? We circled the wagons, we got focused, and after that, companies took off, you know. But, you know, you learn, that's the only way. I mean, you got to make those mistakes, right? I mean, you got to make those mistakes because without those mistakes, you just don't grow.
I'll add another one.
Go.
Fairly early, a few years into Epic, we had a board that was made up of the original sweat equity shareholders, and I fired the whole board because they weren't able to bring any additional knowledge or value to the meetings and replace them with much stronger people. So that was a pivotal moment.
That's big.
Yeah, I'll give you my own answer, and then we'll go to you. But I think, you know, like Judy mentioned, for me, it's not a moment. There's a series of them. You know, now there's not hundreds of them. There's a dozen of them, and they come from different reasons, and sometimes, but all of them involved instinct. So, for example, I was at Arthur D. Little consultant. I loved Arthur D. Little. I loved consultant. We had one little kid, and Denise said, my wife, let's have a second kid, but if we're going to do that, you can't travel 5 days a week. That's got to stop. And she was right. So I said, all right, I'm going to go to the Brigham and Women's Hospital and become a CIO and only, you know, travel a lot less. So it was that pivot because of a personal reason. I wanted a second kid and eventually a third. And I remember us in another way, several years later, a conversation with a guy named Rich Carell and Rich Rydell, who Scott and I both know, and they were both saying, well, we're interested in starting a professional society for CIOs, calling it Chime. Would you be interested in working with us, and would you chair the board? I said, sure, what the hell? I like you guys. Besides, I think we use it. So instinctive moments that went on, and where, you know, I did not know the day before that conversation was coming, but it came. So you'll see a lot of those things in your career. It's almost Brownian motion. Stuff comes your way. You'll make a gut call. You'll go, you'll do the pros and cons list. But shoot, at the end of the day, it's a gut call. And most of the time it'll work out. Doesn't always work out, but most of the time it'll work out.
I'm going to add one more, too. Sure. My husband's a pediatrician, and I came home one day to find him very upset. He had had a patient who had certain problems. She was under good care, so she was doing well. She went with her family to another city. She got sick. They took her to the emergency department. And they treated her not knowing she had that condition, and she died. Ooh. And he was just distraught. And he said over and over again, if they just had her record, they would have known what to do. It would have been easy. Yeah. So I went back to work, met with one of our guys, Dave, and said, Dave, let's fix this. And that's where interoperability began. So that the pivotal time there created interoperability because Dave and his programmers wrote the code to be able to, with minimal effort, get the data to go from one place to another, and that started the whole interoperability thing.
Good.
Well, congratulations on your award and everybody's accomplishment. Really impressive discussion. Just a quick question, cybersecurity. Where do you see the role of EPIC in the security of the data going forward, and where it is today? And then second, and we don't need to get to it, but I'm born and raised in Germany, and I'm in the United States 25 years. I have both citizenships. And in Germany, we stand in the way because of data sharing basically being precluded. It's
called what?
In Germany. We can't share data between different universities easily. And it's a big problem because when you want to treat with immunotherapy or other genetic information, we can't easily share data. So where do you see a role of EPIC and EMRs and leaders like you in helping a global world to be connected?
Okay.
So cybersecurity and the connection, global world, and the role in politics.
Okay, there's 3 questions there. Cybersecurity, we're fortunate to be able to say that our software itself has never had been attacked successfully. Part of it is that each of our customers pretty much has their own instance, so we don't put them all together in one great big pot. And that's a help we have our own structure of a database, so folks can't say it's a common database they know how to get to. We use a language that's not that many people use that language. So there's all these barriers, and I think that helps. But the most important thing is if you have our software, when you get a new release, put it in, because we keep track of what the latest cyber attack techniques are, and we are constantly updating the software to defend against the latest cyber attack techniques. Sharing the data, the story you heard about us writing interoperability, it took us about 2 years to write it. After that, nobody would use it. That goes a little bit back to sharing data. They said, we can't take our good data and send it out. How do we know what they're going to do with it? We can't bring someone else's bad data in. Maybe it'll corrupt our systems. Nobody would use it for about 2 years until we finally got two groups, Talbert and Memorial Care, to use it. And what was fascinating, first of all, the first patient whose data ever went across, Francine, was so proud that she was the subject of that data going by. And she told us that we should use her name and her picture and her story. Then the CEO of one of the sites came to talk to our CEO council meeting, and he said that the only reason that they were participating in what we call Care Everywhere, interoperability, is because the CIO came up to him, handed him some papers, said, here's some software I want to buy, will you sign? And he signed without asking what it was for. He said if he had asked what it was for, he would not have signed. So it is very interesting. We are finding that in Europe it's very difficult because they won't let the data tip it. Now, your story about Germany is worse than most countries because they won't let the data go out of the country for most of them. But some of the countries are changing. And we now have about 3 countries, one already sending us data, that's Lebanon, and 2 others are in the process and have signed to do it. There are so many advantages for doing that. So we create Cosmos. That's why they're sending us the data. Cosmos is a database that now has about 175 million patients in it that are shared by our customer to have one very large database for research. But in addition, we use Cosmos to find what we call lookalikes, which are rare patients with rare diseases or patients with mystery diseases. And then we can find across the country maybe the 3 others who also have those same rare or mystery diseases. And those patients can get better treatment because their doctors can collaborate.
I'm sorry, I was just saying. Go ahead. Keep going.
Well, we're also doing something called best care choices for my patient, which means that when you go to get a treatment for your patient or figure it out, according to the Scottsdale Institute discussions, there's only about 10% evidence-based medicine. And so what we're doing is we're looking at say you're the patient, the 17,523 patients very, very similar to you with the same problems. And we'll publish what are the results of the different treatments they were given so you and your physicians can talk together about what should be best for you. So that's why we think most people are going to try to submit to Cosmos and share the data that way, because they're going to want lookalikes and they're going to want best care choices.
Ivo, you have anything to add?
I'm just going to throw a little stat out there that I heard the other day that was kind of interesting. Citibank spends 6% of their total budget, not IT budget, the total budget on cybersecurity. The average healthcare IT department spends less than 5% of the 3% that represents the IT budget on cybersecurity. And so, in my mind, even though everybody says this is part of the problem is Judy's so good at what she does, we haven't had, but, most of these breaches are not electronic, most of them are human error in cybersecurity. Right.
And the government has to stop fining the victims of the cyber attacks.
Say that again?
The government often fines the health systems who get cyber attacked, and they've got to stop doing that.
Mm. Right.
I think a couple of things. One is, and first of all, broadly, would encourage all of you to become quite active and engaged in the associations and the collections that are part of our industry, because that's how a lot of this stuff happens. It's not because you do it or your organization does it. Security happens because people work with the federal government on a variety of provisions, including, try to attempts to change legislation, because Judy's right. You can be fined or penalized if you're the ones who disclose, which is one of the reasons they keep things quiet. So I think part of it is getting out there, joining your colleagues, and making the change. That's how it happens. And they actually want people like you. And it's both in the security, but it's also in the interoperability realm. So I think one of the neat things about these two folks, and to a degree myself too, is engaging in the industry and helping it move, because we can't do it individually, we can do it collectively. So end of statement. The other, on the interoperability front, one of the things that you see in no industry is their broad interoperability. None. So and next time you go for a mortgage, see if you have an interoperable experience, with applying for a mortgage and collect. It just doesn't happen, et cetera. So when you see two industries that are much more advanced, banking and travel, we see three things. Very targeted. They went after specific transactions. They didn't try to boil all of them. Went after exchanging money at the end of the day between my checks went from your bank, et cetera. The second is it was very clear what's in it for them. So if I do this, it's pretty darn clear what I'm going to get out of it. And there's called interdependency of gain, which means for me to get my gain, I need you to get your gain. Okay? If I didn't need you, you're a pain in the butt. I wouldn't be working with you. So I just could do it myself. So it's like email. Email isn't valuable till other people use it. And so there's interdependency of gain, and the more others, the more gain I get. And so there's sort of a network effect. And then the third is there's a body that brings people together to hammer out the issues, of standards. So it's the Open Travel Alliance in travel. It's the SWIFT network in banking. Who knows whether it's one of these federal agencies, et cetera. So I think part of the interoperability is let's be real about this and say we got a target. I don't know, it's prior authorization. You could figure out, you could arm wrestle about where it ought to be. But we ought to sort of settle in for the fact that we'll never get it all, but nobody has. In fact, there's probably no economic or sort of business rationale for doing it all. So you can decide that that's a bunch of crap. But anyway, that's what I believe. So anyway, we have, yes.
You mentioned a lot of innovators, disruptors, and titans of industry. So I am very interested in strategy and innovation. And I'm really, really curious, after 45 years, if my math is correct, how have you been able to avoid the plateau effect?
And the what?
The plateau effect, that comfort level.
Yeah.
And also, how have you been able to transmit that to your teams?
We once had a vice president from a large company in Chicago come to Epic to ask what we did for things like that. And we said nothing. And he spent a couple days wandering around the whole place and meeting with lots of people. And he said we did more than any company he knows. So I don't even know what those things are. He has his list. But we have first of all, we require everybody to be on site. We don't have remote work. With a few exceptions, overseas, we have people overseas. And we have a group called Boost. So sometimes people leave Epic. Let's say their husband is going to take a medical school somewhere else, and they're going to move. And then they become, you folks know Boost? They become Boost employees, and then they can work for our customer. So they still work for us. So basically, and we still say come to our staff meetings and things like that. We have a required staff meeting once a month. Everybody's on site. We've been all back at the office for 3 years now. We're one of the first companies to say everybody back. There's a rule that you have to live within 45 minutes of Epic, and if you leave that 45-minute drive, you have voluntarily terminated your employment. So it's very strong. And at the staff meeting, we work really hard on why we do what we do. And everybody attends. We have some people say it's the favorite day of the month, which is really fun, isn't it? That it's a staff meeting. And why we do what we do is very important. It talks about how we help people stay alive, how we help our health systems do their work, etc. So those are some of the things that we do to not plateau. But I think probably the biggest goes back to what I said before about ownership. People own their products. They're constantly trying to figure out, how can I make it better? What can I do? We send them on immersion trips. So our software developers and our technical support staff go on immersion trips. Some of you have probably had them show up at your place. And they come back and when they go there, they're supposed to be wandering around, watching the people who are using the software, seeing how it's working for them. And they learn two things. One, what they need to do to improve the software. And two, they learn to care. And that second thing is very important, because when they're with you and they see how important it is to you, when you call them and say there's a problem, they care. So the immersion trips are important.
So we're in the waning hours, but I don't know who's next. But oh, you are? Go. Oh.
Okay, I got it. Okay. I'm Alice O'Brien. I'm an anesthesiologist. I'm also on the anesthesia steering board for Epic. I've been working with Epic for the last 12 years with Harris Health, and of course with Memorial Hermann's Go Live the last few weeks. My question is a fun one. I was wondering if Epic had a mascot or a pet that kind of represents the mission or the culture of the company.
A mascot or a pet?
A mascot or a pet. I was there for UGM and took a tour of the farm.
Well, we've got Ralph, who's a donkey. About a third of our land, we have 1,670 acres, and about a third of our land is used for farming, including animals. But Ralph is the fun one. We have my dog who comes and visits, and outside my office it says, his name is Tundra, he's a Samoyed. It says Tundra's Run, and he has his own place. But I wouldn't say we have a pet that's a company pet. I don't know if the staff would. No.
Yes.
Do you have one where you work?
No, I am not fortunate enough to work at Epic where I can bring my pet to work with me. My TSs all have their dogs working in their offices with them, so that's wonderful. But no.
We have people who bring dogs in too. We don't have a company pet.
Right.
But we have to be careful in case someone's allergic or afraid. But within that, yes, you'll see dogs sometimes walking around with people.
All right, let's do one more question, and then Shaji's got some final comments. Go ahead.
Thanks. Judy over here. Hi, David Jaffrey, MD Anderson Cancer Center. Fantastic product. We use it every day to treat many, many cancer patients. And I wanted to go to a topic that Ivo kind of commented on platforms versus systems. And one thing that I've watched you do so well is put the utility together in terms of how industry and healthcare is connecting. We look at Aura for genomics ordering. You look at the payer platform for coverage. You're seeing the connectivity. Epic has moved now into a utility company. You are literally connecting. You're building the fabric. Was that always the plan, or
Always what?
Was that always the plan?
No, not at all. It surprised me. Some of our staff. The first one was probably Exact Science with Cologuard, and they are near us. And Kevin, the CEO of Exact Science, would say, "Judy, we want to be one of your customers." I would say, "Kevin, you're not one of our customers. You're basically a lab system for one product. And no, you're not going to be a customer." And that would go on and until Alan, one of our staff, talked with Kevin, and Alan persuaded me that indeed Kevin should be. And it worked out very well. The number of Cologuard, the use of Cologuard really increased, which shows to me that the people ordering colonoscopies now had a choice that was just as easy as ordering a colonoscopy, but was less invasive for the patient, less costly, didn't require all the physician time, you didn't have to drink that yucky stuff, and the ease of ordering it made it a choice for the physician now, which was a good thing. That spread out into other things. When we do the diagnostic specialties, we ask them for the genomic information back. So we have Cosnome, which has 175 or so million patients in it for clinical research, and Cosmos and Cosnome, which is a parallel genomic database. When Cosnome gets more filled up, it's going to be wonderful ability to do studies with the genomic data there. Is there anything else to, let me see, answer your question? Yeah, we are working in lots of different areas, but the one we are now trying to get into is working with pharma. So we think they're hard to work with. Because we're working with a bunch of different groups, but medical equipment, we're working with that too to make it easier to order the appropriate medical equipment, because our information about it was often they'll send you a whole bunch of stuff, not quite sure which size you need for that patient's knee. But now it can be ordered more easily and you can get the right sizes and not have to deal with so much and then send it back. So lots of different areas we're working with. We are a little worried that the government's not going to be real happy with that.
Yeah, this is the thing. You turn from a software company into a utility, basically. You're literally a utility.
And utility companies have a lot of government oversight.
Yes, I can see that too.
So we're worried about that.
One comment, and then we'll thank our panel. Turn over to Doug. When you look at the definition of a platform, it's generally a software system. Definition of a platform is generally a software system that is used to support a wide range of activities on a part of a wide range of actors. So iOS is a platform used by a whole bunch of people to run apps. Amazon is a platform used by a whole bunch of people to do retail. LinkedIn used by, you get what I'm saying here on this. So it's not necessarily utility because it is, in fact, that it's got multi-purpose. Makes it kind of like a utility, like electricity is most, but it's not sort of the same drive to the bottom in terms of cost efficiency, et cetera. Whereas an application tends to have specific intent. I'm going to support cardiology, or I'm going to support the revenue cycle. I think what's kind of, at least for me, interesting is that the two are getting blurry. So you see platforms with a lot of application capabilities, and I wonder sometimes whether the FHIR API set will turn EHRs into platforms because people will build stuff on top. It'll be used by a wide range of actors. So there's been this sort of traditional split, but I'm not sure I'd call it a commodity as just a different way to monetize and to provide valuable service. So anyway.
So what would you call it?
Well, I mean, I think they're platforms, and they have characteristics like water and like electricity where the uses are quite wide-ranging.
You'd call Epic Software a platform?
I think you're becoming both. You have application-specific functionality for a specific purpose that you provide, but you also increasingly enable other people to do other things.
Payers, too.
Correct, on top of that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's thank our panel here for remarkably done.